Noah woke up in the middle of the night, his throat dry and burning. Still half asleep, he stumbled downstairs toward the restaurant kitchen for a glass of water. Just as he reached the bottom of the stairs, a strange clattering sound caught his attention. Noah froze. The noise came again, louder this time, and his heart began to pound. Carefully, he stepped forward and peeked around the corner. A dark figure was crouched beside a display cabinet, stuffing valuable antiques into a bag. A thief. "Thief! There's a thief!" Noah shouted at the top of his lungs. The man immediately turned around. Within seconds, the quiet restaurant erupted into chaos. Employees rushed from their rooms. Lights flickered on throughout the building, and standing at the top of the staircase was Catherine. She had just witnessed everything. None of them knew that the wheels of destiny had already been set in motion. Like many children growing up in the poor rural towns of Mississippi, Noah was raised in hardship and poverty. His father died when he was still very young, leaving his mother alone to care for the family. Life was so difficult that even putting food on the table every day was a constant struggle. Had Noah been born into a different family, he might have been forced to drop out of school early, or perhaps never attend school at all. But his mother was different from most women around her. She believed her son needed an education if he ever hoped to escape poverty. So after Noah finished 8th grade, she sent him to live with his aunt and uncle in Jackson, Mississippi. She waited until then because she wanted him to be old enough to help around the house and not become a burden on his relatives. And so Noah packed his few belongings, left home alone, and stepped into a completely new chapter of his life. Leaving his hometown was one of the hardest things Noah had ever done. His mother stood beside the Greyhound bus with tears in her eyes, knowing she might not see her son for months at a time. Noah tried to be brave, but deep down he was terrified. He had never traveled so far from home before. As the bus pulled away from the station, he looked out the window and watched his mother grow smaller and smaller until she finally disappeared from sight. At that moment, neither of them knew how much their lives were about to change. Life in Jackson was far from easy. Noah attended high school during the day and worked at a small family diner near his aunt's house after classes. Because his family qualified for assistance programs, his school expenses were reduced, and the extra money he earned at the diner helped cover his basic needs. Most of the time, his aunt and uncle did not complain about having him around. Only when his aunt was angry about something else would she sometimes take her frustration out on him. Still, Noah endured everything without complaint, and 4 years passed quietly. He grew stronger, tougher, and more resilient than anyone his age. For a long time, nothing truly changed. Everything began to change during his senior year of high school. Like many teenagers his age, Noah started noticing things he had never paid attention to before. He found himself blushing when girls smiled at him and feeling embarrassed whenever someone caught him staring. There was one girl in particular who captured all of his attention. Her name was Charlotte. She was the most beautiful girl in school and the daughter of one of the wealthiest families in Jackson. Her father owned a successful consumer products company, and while most families lived ordinary lives, Charlotte's family enjoyed a level of luxury Noah could barely imagine. From the moment he noticed her, he couldn't stop thinking about her. Noah fell for Charlotte without even realizing when it happened. Yet he knew very well that someone like him had no place in her world. He was a poor boy who had lost his father, while she was a beautiful girl who seemed to have everything. Still, he couldn't stop himself from watching her. He followed her from a distance, treasured every smile on her face, and looked forward to every day he could see her at school. After finishing work at the diner each evening, Noah would ride his old bicycle through the streets near Charlotte's neighborhood. He never intended to speak to her. Just catching a glimpse of her from afar was enough to make his day feel worthwhile. Then came the day that changed his destiny forever. It was Valentine's Day during his senior year. For weeks, Noah had been thinking about Charlotte, and that morning he finally made up his mind. He was going to give her a flower. He asked for the day off from the diner, put on the cleanest clothes he owned, and rode his bicycle to buy a single red rose. Holding the flower tightly in his hand, he made his way toward Charlotte's house. But the moment he arrived, his courage began to disappear. Parked outside her family's beautiful home were expensive cars and pickup trucks. Well-dressed young men stood in line carrying huge bouquets of roses and expensive gifts. Noah looked down at his single flower and suddenly felt ashamed. He turned his bicycle around and rode away. For hours, Noah wandered through the streets of Jackson. Again and again, he found himself returning to Charlotte's neighborhood, only to lose his nerve and leave. From morning until night, he drifted through the city with the rose still in his hand. Finally, around 9 o'clock that evening, he gathered enough courage to ring the doorbell. A housekeeper answered the door and gave him a suspicious look. "Can I help you?" she asked. Noah swallowed hard. "I'd like to see Charlotte. We go to school together." After a moment, she nodded and told him to wait. A few minutes later, Charlotte appeared. Noah was speechless. Even years later, he would still remember that moment as one of the most beautiful sights he had ever seen. Charlotte wore an elegant pink dress, and her long hair flowed gracefully down her back. She looked surprised to see him, but she politely invited him inside. Sitting in the enormous living room, Noah suddenly felt smaller than ever. Across from him sat a girl who seemed perfect in every way, while he felt like he didn't belong there at all. His hands trembled as he held out the rose. "This is for you, Charlotte." Happy Valentine's Day. Noah didn't notice that the flower had been damaged after spending an entire day in his hand and on the back of his bicycle. Charlotte smiled. It was a smile Noah would never forget. At first, he thought she was simply being polite, but then he saw something else in her expression. There was amusement in her eyes. There was mockery. There was pity. In that moment, Noah felt every insecurity he had ever carried come crashing down on him. He lowered his head, unable to look at her any longer. Without saying another word, he stood up and rushed out of the house. Tears streamed down his face as he rode his bicycle through the dark streets. For the first time in his life, he truly understood that being poor was something people looked down on. Eventually, he reached a quiet riverbank. Overwhelmed by humiliation and anger, he smashed his bicycle and stood there for a long time staring into the darkness. Then he made a decision that would change the course of his life. He would become rich no matter what it took. He would never allow anyone to look down on him again. The next morning, Noah stepped off a Greyhound bus at Houston Central Bus Terminal. He had no luggage except for a small backpack on his shoulder, no relatives, and no friends waiting for him. Looking around nervously, he walked forward with fear in his eyes. The terminal was crowded with people. Taxi drivers and rideshare drivers gathered around passengers who had just gotten off buses, offering rides and calling out to them from every direction. He shrank back, hugged his backpack tightly against his chest, and hurried toward the exit as fast as he could. Noah wandered through the busy streets of Houston. After a while, he bought a sandwich and stopped at a small roadside coffee stand. He ate first before thinking about finding work or a place to stay. After all, a person needed food before anything else. As he ate, he looked around at the unfamiliar city. Everywhere he looked, there were tall buildings standing side by side, supermarkets, restaurants, coffee shops, and crowds of people constantly coming and going. His eyes suddenly landed on a large restaurant across the street. A small hiring sign was posted near the entrance. A smile immediately appeared on his face. Since he had helped at a diner before, working in a restaurant seemed like the most suitable job for him. After finishing his coffee and paying the bill, Noah straightened his clothes and walked across the street toward the restaurant. The restaurant had only just opened, so there were still no customers inside. Noah slowly approached a female employee who was busy cleaning the glass door. "Excuse me, ma'am, is your restaurant hiring employees?" His strong Mississippi country accent made the employee scratch her head in confusion. "I'm sorry, what did you say?" A moment later, she finally understood because she had only managed to catch the word employee. "You want to apply for a job?" Noah quickly nodded. "Yes, ma'am. The owner hasn't arrived yet. You can go somewhere else for now and come back around 8 or 9. Thank you." Hearing that, Noah returned to the same coffee stand and waited because he honestly had nowhere else to go. He sat there watching the restaurant across the street. Gradually, customers began entering. After waiting for more than an hour, he saw a luxury SUV pull into the underground parking garage. A short time later, a middle-aged woman and a young man walked into the restaurant together. Through the glass window, Noah saw the employees bow respectfully as they greeted them. The two of them didn't sit down to order food. Instead, they headed upstairs. Noah immediately guessed that the woman must be the restaurant owner. After asking the coffee vendor and confirming that it was already past 8 o'clock, he hurried back to the restaurant. This time, the same employee pointed him upstairs. The last room at the end of the hallway. That's the owner's office. Noah slowly climbed the stairs and walked toward the room at the end of the corridor. He took a deep breath and knocked on the door. A voice came from inside. "Come in." Noah slowly pushed open the office door and felt embarrassed when he saw a woman sitting in a swivel chair while a young man was sitting on the edge of the desk. The young man quickly stepped down and fastened the top button of his shirt. The woman turned her eyes toward Noah, who was standing nervously at the doorway, causing him to flinch. "Who are you looking for?" "Ma'am, are you the owner of this restaurant?" "I am." "How did you get up here?" "One of the employees told me where your office was." "I'm here to apply for a job. Is that so?" "Come in and have a seat." "Yes, ma'am." Noah slowly walked over and sat in the chair across from the young man, who had returned to staring at his phone. The owner calmly left her desk and sat in a chair beside Noah. "You came from out of town, didn't you? From Mississippi?" "Yes, ma'am." "I'm from Mississippi. I grew up there too. You must have just arrived in Houston, right? If you keep speaking with such a strong country accent, a lot of people won't understand you. You'll need to get used to the local way of speaking. It's my first time here, ma'am. Everything still feels new to me." "That's normal. Take your time. I can understand you just fine. How old are you?" 18. "Why aren't you in school? Why are you looking for work?" "Family circumstances, ma'am." "But I can work hard, I promise." The owner looked Noah up and down before nodding. "You're only 18, but you're a pretty big kid. What position are you applying for?" "What positions are available? We're currently looking for a cook and a parking attendant. Our previous parking attendant quit a few days ago." "I don't know how to cook, ma'am. If possible, I'd like to apply for the parking attendant position." "All right. Go downstairs and meet Ryan, the manager. He'll explain everything to you. If there's anything you don't understand, ask him." "Thank you very much, ma'am." "Can you start right away?" "Yes, ma'am. I can start today. But may I ask you something first?" "Go ahead. Does the restaurant provide a place to stay?" "I just arrived in Houston this morning. I haven't found anywhere to live yet, and I don't have any relatives here." "Of course. I almost forgot to mention it. We have rooms upstairs for employees who need a place to stay. There's still an empty room right next to my office. You can move in there if you'd like." "Thank you so much, ma'am." "Then go downstairs and get started." "Yes, ma'am. Thank you." "Goodbye, ma'am." Noah turned toward the young man. "Goodbye, sir." The young man had spent the entire conversation staring at his phone without saying a single word. As soon as Noah stepped out of the office, the young man finally put away his phone and looked at the woman with jealousy in his eyes. "You like that kid already, don't you?" Catherine laughed. "What are you talking about? When did I ever say I liked him? You don't have to say it. I saw the way you kept looking at him. Maybe it's because he's younger than me. Maybe he's more handsome than me." Catherine smiled and gently pinched his cheek. "He's young and good-looking. That's true. But how could he compare to you? Fine. I'll let it go this time. But if you start paying attention to anyone besides me, I'll be upset. You're so jealous. You're the only one I love." It was obvious that the young man named Logan and the restaurant owner Catherine were lovers. Catherine had just turned 40 years old. She had once been married and had 2 children, a son and a daughter. Both of them now lived overseas. Her late husband had been the CEO of a large transportation company. He owned enormous wealth, valuable real estate, and several luxury mansions worth millions of dollars. But before he could truly enjoy everything he had worked for, he died in a plane crash while traveling abroad to visit his children. After his death, all of his assets were left to Catherine. Catherine had originally come from Mississippi and later moved to Houston to work for her husband's company. Because of her beauty, she had caught the attention of the company's owner, who later became her husband. After he passed away, Catherine found it impossible to manage the transportation company by herself, so she sold it and used the money to open a restaurant. These days, Catherine had more money than she could ever spend. Whether the restaurant made a profit or not hardly mattered to her. She had opened it mostly for enjoyment. Even the employees at the restaurant earned excellent salaries. A parking attendant like Noah could make far more than he had ever dreamed of earning back home. Catherine was cheerful, friendly, and surprisingly easygoing despite being the owner. Most employees genuinely liked her. The only thing people disapproved of was her habit of dating younger men. But Catherine was wealthy, and everyone felt she had the right to live however she wanted. No one dared criticize her openly. At 40 years old, combined with her wealth and confidence, Catherine had only become more attractive over time. Although she was no longer young, she dressed in a modern and fashionable style that made her appear much younger than her age. Most days, she left the restaurant in the hands of her nephew and the manager while she spent her time shopping, traveling, and enjoying life with her younger lovers. Catherine's standards for choosing lovers were extremely strict. The men she spent time with had to be handsome, between 20 and 30 years old, tall, physically fit, and most importantly, they had to know how to behave. Being Catherine's lover was an easy life. The men around her could buy whatever they wanted. Expensive phones, luxury vehicles, designer clothes, and costly gifts were all things Catherine could provide as long as they made her happy. But if any of them betrayed her or went against her wishes, she would take everything back. In some cases, she could even make sure they never recovered financially. Even so, no one had ever truly dared to challenge her. Usually, she was the one who became bored first and ended the relationship. Logan was probably the man Catherine had favored the longest. Most of the younger men in her life lasted only a few months, and 6 months was considered a long time. Logan, however, had already been with her for more than a year. But the reason was simple. He knew exactly what to say. His sweet words and constant flattery could soften Catherine's heart almost every time. During that first meeting in the office, Noah had already been impressed by Catherine. She possessed a graceful face, smooth skin untouched by wrinkles, and a figure that remained remarkably attractive despite being over 40 years old. Combined with her youthful fashion sense, she easily attracted attention wherever she went. While sitting across from her, Noah had barely dared to look directly into her eyes. She was simply too beautiful. Beautiful enough to make his heart race. In the end, Noah was hired and officially began working at the restaurant. It was also the place where he would slowly discover the irresistible charm, desires, and loneliness hidden inside a beautiful woman who seemed to have everything, yet was never truly satisfied. Noah's first day on the job was extremely difficult. Because he wasn't familiar with the work yet, everything seemed to go wrong. From receiving customers' vehicles and writing down parking numbers to bringing vehicles back when customers were ready to leave, he made mistake after mistake. Ryan scolded him throughout the day. Fortunately, Noah was hardworking and physically strong. Whenever he made a mistake, he simply corrected it and tried again without complaining. On top of that, he had a friendly face and an easy smile, so the female employees at the restaurant patiently taught him everything he needed to know. The work itself wasn't particularly complicated. Customers came and went throughout the day, and most of the time the job was fairly relaxed. Overall, everything was completely normal. The only person who wasn't acting normal was Noah himself. Every time he saw Catherine, he felt something strange happening inside him. His face would grow hot, and he would lose his composure whenever she came near him or spoke to him. He found himself obsessed with her elegance and beauty. In truth, Noah wasn't the only man who felt that way. Several of the male employees reacted similarly. Even many male customers seemed unable to take their eyes off Catherine whenever she appeared. To be honest, if Catherine spent more time at the restaurant, the place would probably be packed with customers every day. Before he knew it, a month had passed since Noah started working there. By now, the job had become much easier. He had adjusted to his responsibilities and no longer made as many mistakes. Yet he still couldn't stop feeling nervous whenever he was around Catherine. He often found himself drifting into daydreams about her. Little by little, he forgot the promises he had made to his mother. He forgot the goals he had once set for himself. He even forgot about Charlotte, the girl he had once loved so deeply. These days, Catherine was the only woman occupying his thoughts. There was only one thing he wanted, somehow, someday, to win her heart. Even though Noah knew Catherine already had a younger lover named Logan, he couldn't stop himself from thinking about her. The employees at the restaurant often gossiped about Logan behind his back. They criticized him for being a healthy young man who refused to work and instead relied on a wealthy woman to support him. Everyone seemed to agree with that opinion, except Noah. More than once, he found himself thinking differently from everyone else. If he were in Logan's position, if Catherine chose him and wanted to take care of him, he would probably accept without hesitation. No matter what people said, Noah only wanted one thing now: to become rich. He had grown tired of the poverty he had endured for so many years back in Mississippi. Sometimes he even wished Catherine would notice him. It sounded ridiculous, but it was also painfully realistic. Human beings are often blinded by wealth. Once they become fascinated by it, escaping its influence becomes difficult, and they stay close to it, sink deeper into it, and continue chasing it until there is nothing left. Most of the employees at the restaurant were women. There were only a few male employees, and most of them were skinny and unimpressive. Although Noah was the youngest among them, he stood out because of his tall, strong build. Years of hard work had given him broad shoulders and powerful muscles. Combined with his dimples and natural charm, he was no less attractive than anyone else. Because he was strong and energetic, Catherine often asked Noah for help whenever something heavy needed to be moved. Those moments always made him happy. At the same time, they made him miserable because he never had the courage to look directly into her eyes. Whenever Catherine spoke to him, Noah's face would turn red like he had a fever. Catherine had even joked with him several times. "You're a grown man. Why do you get embarrassed so easily?" It's actually pretty cute. Every time she said something like that, Noah became even more flustered. Recently, for some reason, Catherine had started spending much more time at the restaurant. Logan, the younger man who used to accompany her everywhere, was no longer showing up as often. Normally, Catherine would stop by the restaurant in the morning, stay until around noon, and then leave to spend the rest of the day shopping, dining, or enjoying herself with Logan until late at night. On weekends, she usually went to yoga classes, visited spas, or treated herself to various beauty services. But over the past few weeks, things had changed. Catherine seemed to stay at the restaurant all day. Some nights she even slept there instead of going home. One afternoon, Noah was sitting outside absent-mindedly when he suddenly felt a hand resting on his shoulder. Startled, he turned around and immediately saw Catherine standing behind him. His face turned red at once. Catherine smiled before speaking. "Noah, can you come upstairs and help me move a plant down to the first floor? They're delivering a replacement later today. The old one has died." "Yes, ma'am." Noah followed Catherine upstairs to her office. The plant was far heavier than it looked. He strained every muscle in his arms just to drag it a short distance. The thought of carrying it all the way downstairs seemed nearly impossible. After struggling with it for almost an hour, he finally managed to move it to the top of the staircase. Downstairs, Catherine had noticed how long it was taking. Two. She started walking up, while calling out to him. "Noah, why is it taking so long? You have customers waiting downstairs." By the time she reached the top of the stairs, Noah was still struggling with the plant. Sweat poured down his body as if he had just stepped out of a shower. Catherine couldn't help laughing. "Goodness, what happened to you?" "You're completely soaked." Noah scratched the back of his head awkwardly. "The plant is heavier than I expected." Catherine shook her head and smiled. "Forget it. Leave it there. The delivery guys can move it later when they bring the new one." Noah followed Catherine back into her office. She immediately turned on a fan for him and then walked into the restroom. A moment later, she returned, holding a damp towel, and handed it to him. "Here, wipe yourself off and cool down a little." Noah awkwardly accepted the towel. "Thank you, ma'am." Slowly, he wiped the sweat from his face before taking off his outer jacket, revealing a sweat-soaked tank top clinging tightly to his body. Closing his eyes, he enjoyed the cool air blowing across his skin. What Noah didn't notice was that Catherine was sitting nearby, watching him carefully. His broad chest, muscular physique, sun-tanned skin, and handsome face drew her attention. Whenever Noah smiled, the dimples on his cheeks became even more noticeable. Catherine found herself staring without blinking. It was as though she had become fascinated by the young man sitting in front of her. Sensing that someone was watching him, Noah opened his eyes. The moment his gaze met Catherine's, he quickly looked away and lowered his head in embarrassment. Catherine smiled. "Why are you so shy?" "I didn't do anything to you." "It's nothing, ma'am. I've always been like this. You don't need to be nervous around me." As if driven by some invisible force, Noah suddenly asked about the man who used to be around her all the time. "How come I haven't seen that young guy with you lately?" Catherine looked surprised. "You mean Logan?" "Yes, ma'am. I broke up with him." Noah blinked in surprise. "Really? I thought you loved him." Catherine seemed slightly shocked that Noah was interested in her personal life, yet for some reason she felt comfortable talking to him about it. He was using my money to gamble. Then he got involved with other bad habits too. You know what I hate most? Men who don't know how to appreciate what they have. I may have plenty of money, but I worked hard for it. It's not there for people to waste on foolish things. Do you understand what I mean? Catherine winked at Noah as she spoke. The gesture felt deliberate, almost as if she were sending him a signal. It was as though Noah had become the next person to catch her attention. Yet Noah wasn't afraid of that possibility at all. The truth was that he genuinely liked Catherine. What he didn't understand was whether those feelings came from love, from her beauty, or from the temptation of her wealth. After Catherine's meaningful wink, Noah didn't dare continue the conversation. Instead, he quickly searched for an excuse to leave. I should get back downstairs and work. If a customer's vehicle goes missing, I won't be able to pay for it. He grabbed his jacket, put it back on, and hurried out of the office. Catherine remained seated where she was. A slow, knowing smile appeared on her lips. That young man is more attractive than he realizes. Noah went back downstairs and returned to watching customers' vehicles as usual. As he sat there, he kept thinking about everything Catherine had said earlier, especially that mysterious wink. Without realizing it, he smiled to himself. But only a second later, a chill ran through his body. He felt both happy and frightened at the same time. He was happy because Catherine had asked for his help, and because he finally had a chance to talk with her and ease the longing he had been carrying in his heart. But he was also afraid because of the hidden meaning behind her words. Over the following days, whenever Catherine needed help with anything, she would always call Noah. After many opportunities to talk with her, Noah gradually became more comfortable and less shy around her. One afternoon, Noah was sitting outside watching vehicles under the scorching Houston sun when he noticed a familiar-looking young man walking toward the restaurant. The man's clothes were neat, but not expensive. His face looked thin and exhausted, his skin was dark and unhealthy, and his eyes seemed lifeless from lack of sleep. Instead of sitting down to eat, the man went straight upstairs. The employees immediately began whispering among themselves. After overhearing a few comments, Noah suddenly remembered who the man was. It was Logan, Catherine's most recent lover. He had only been abandoned by Catherine 2 months earlier, yet he already looked like a completely different person. Then again, it wasn't surprising. Catherine had once told Noah that Logan had used her money for gambling and had become involved with drugs. Perhaps those destructive habits had turned him into what he was now. Logan disappeared upstairs and entered Catherine's office. No one knew what happened between them behind that closed door. A short time later, Catherine suddenly rushed downstairs while Logan followed behind her, crying and begging. Catherine kicked him away from her and shouted angrily, "Someone get up here and drag him out of my restaurant right now! Noah! Ryan! Get him out of here!" Hearing Catherine call for help, Noah immediately ran over. Together with Ryan, he grabbed Logan and forced him toward the exit. Both the employees and the customers began watching the commotion. Logan stubbornly refused to leave. It took several people, including a security officer from the neighborhood, to finally force him away. But before he left, Logan threw a strange look toward Catherine. It was the kind of look that suggested he was already planning something. There was no need to wait long for Logan's intentions to become clear. That very night, Noah was making his usual rounds, checking all the doors of the restaurant before going to bed. While doing so, he noticed a figure standing across the street staring toward the restaurant. He didn't pay much attention to it because he assumed it was just a passerby. After finishing his inspection, he went upstairs to his room and fell asleep. More than an hour later, a dark figure appeared at the restaurant's front entrance. The intruder was trying to force open the lock and break into the building. After struggling with it for nearly 30 minutes, he finally succeeded. Around midnight, Noah woke up feeling thirsty and decided to go downstairs to the kitchen for some water. Still half asleep, he walked through the restaurant without noticing that someone had already broken inside. As he approached the kitchen, the glow of a streetlight shone through the window and illuminated a man holding several antique vases taken from a display cabinet. Noah froze in shock. Then he shouted at the top of his lungs, "Thief! There's a thief!" Without hesitation, he charged toward the intruder and grabbed hold of him. As they struggled, Noah continued shouting for help, hoping the employees sleeping upstairs would hear him. Catherine and several employees who were staying overnight immediately heard Noah's cries and rushed downstairs. The moment one of the employees switched on the lights, everyone clearly saw the intruder's face. It was Logan. While struggling against Noah, Logan suddenly pulled out a knife and grabbed Noah, pressing the blade against him. "Stay back! Let me leave or I'll kill him." Catherine stood frozen in fear behind them and desperately tried to reason with him. "Logan, please calm down. Put the knife down and let's talk." "Talk? It's all your fault. Why wouldn't you give me money? Do you know that loan sharks are hunting me everywhere right now? You want me dead, don't you? I already told you before, Logan. You could buy whatever you wanted and do whatever you wanted. But why did you use my money for gambling? Why did you get involved with drugs? How could I keep giving you money for those things? Stop talking. You only ever wanted my body. You never cared about my feelings. I'm done listening to you. I need money. Since you wouldn't give me any, I had to take these antiques and sell them. Are you going to let me leave or not? Because I can't promise what happens to him if you don't." Even though he was being held at knife point, Noah showed no fear. He looked at Catherine and said firmly, "Call the police, Catherine. Don't worry about me. He won't do anything." "Shut up!" Logan shouted. "You think I won't?" Catherine remained terrified. "Noah, just let him go. Those antiques aren't worth this. Don't worry about me. Call the police." Yet no matter how many times Noah told her to do it, Catherine refused. She wasn't worried about the antiques. She was worried about Noah. After several more moments of arguing, Noah suddenly made up his mind. He drove his elbow hard into Logan's stomach. The blow caught Logan off guard and forced him to release his grip. But the knife was still tightly clenched in his hand. Furious, Logan lunged forward and stabbed toward Noah. Noah managed to twist his body at the last second, preventing the knife from plunging into his stomach. Even so, the blade sank deep into his arm. Blood immediately poured onto the floor. Logan froze in panic. Realizing what he had done, he dropped the knife and ran. At that moment, Catherine and the employees rushed forward to help Noah. They supported him as blood continued flowing from the wound. An ambulance was called, and Noah was taken to the hospital in the middle of the night. Fortunately, the injury was not life-threatening. However, the stab wound was deep and required several stitches. Noah would need time to recover. From the day Noah was injured, Catherine visited him every single day. She brought him nutritious food, bought him anything he needed, and took care of him with extraordinary attention. At first, Noah had assumed that a wealthy woman like Catherine would be difficult and demanding. Instead, he discovered someone kind, caring, and surprisingly gentle. As the days passed, Noah found himself falling for her even more deeply, though he kept those feelings hidden inside. What Noah didn't know was that Catherine had never truly been loved by anyone around her. The men who came into her life were usually interested in her money and nothing else. Catherine understood their intentions perfectly, yet she still allowed them to remain close to her. Perhaps she had loneliness and pain she never spoke about. As for Logan, he managed to stay on the run for only 2 days before the police arrested him. He was caught using drugs with several associates at an abandoned lot on the outskirts of Houston. In the end, he was sentenced for both drug-related offenses and theft. It was the price he had to pay for his choices. If he had stayed away from gambling and drugs, he probably would have remained Catherine's loyal companion for much longer. Noah was allowed to stay at the restaurant and recover for as long as necessary before returning to work. Catherine didn't deduct a single dollar from his pay. In fact, she increased his salary because of his bravery that night. And little by little, Catherine herself began developing genuine feelings for the young man who had risked his life to protect her property. For many years, Catherine had always been attracted to mature, confident men, yet somehow, she now found herself developing feelings for a young man more than 20 years younger than her. The emotions growing inside her for Noah felt sincere in a way she had not experienced for nearly a decade. One afternoon, Catherine sat beside Noah's bed and spoke softly. "Have you ever been in love before?" Noah hesitated for a moment. "There was a girl I loved once, but I was rejected before I even had the chance to tell her how I felt." For some reason, Noah found himself opening up to Catherine about the one-sided love he had carried in his heart years ago. Although he no longer had feelings for Charlotte, The pain of being looked down on because of his poverty had never truly disappeared. The memory remained deeply buried in his mind. It was all because he had been poor. Before he even had a chance to do anything, he had already been rejected. As Noah spoke, sadness appeared on his face. Catherine listened quietly, growing more curious. Why did that happen? Noah forced a faint smile and looked up. Because I was poor. Who would want to love a poor guy like me? Being poor is a terrible thing. It really is. Being rich isn't always as wonderful as people think, Catherine replied. Noah looked surprised. How could it not be? Everyone wants to be rich. I do too. The problem is that I don't even know how to become rich. At the end of the day, I'm just a parking attendant. No matter how hard I work, I'll still be working for someone else. Catherine looked into Noah's sad eyes and felt a wave of sympathy. Then she gathered her courage and asked a question she had been keeping inside for a long time. What kind of person do you think I am? Noah answered immediately without giving it much thought. You're kind, you're cheerful, you're beautiful, and you're successful, Catherine smiled. You really think I'm beautiful? Noah laughed awkwardly. Beautiful? I think you're so beautiful it's hard not to fall for you. Catherine took a deep breath. Then she said something Noah never expected to hear. Then be my boyfriend. Noah stared at her in complete shock. What? I don't know why, but I think I've developed feelings for you. Noah could barely believe what he was hearing. He was convinced Catherine had to be joking. You can't be serious. Why would someone like you ever like someone like me? I'm serious, Noah. Can't you see how I feel about you? Catherine stood up slowly. You don't have to answer right now. Take your time and think about it. Yes, ma'am. After Catherine left the room, Noah lay awake the entire night. Hadn't he once dreamed of being noticed by Catherine? Now she not only liked him, she had been the one to confess first. So why was he hesitating? Was it possible that what he felt for Catherine had never truly been love? Was it her beauty that attracted him? Or was it the temptation of her wealth? Noah couldn't find an answer. After resting for a week, Noah's injury gradually improved. Lying around for so long had become boring, so he decided to return to work like everyone else. Before he realized it, he had been at the restaurant for almost a year. During that entire year, he had never returned home to Mississippi. He hadn't even called his family. Back in the poor rural town where his mother lived, there wasn't even a phone for her to answer. A telephone cost nearly as much as 1 month's salary. Every month, Noah faithfully sent half of his earnings home through the mail to support his mother and younger sister. He saved the rest for the future. No matter what happened, he couldn't stay single forever. He was the only son in the family. If he never got married, how could he face the memory of his late father? Lost in thoughts about his uncertain future, Noah didn't notice a young couple pulling up in front of the restaurant until the young man tapped him on the shoulder. Hey, can I get a parking ticket? Startled, Noah quickly handed him a ticket. Then his eyes fell on the young woman standing beside him. It was Charlotte, the beautiful girl he had once loved from afar. After more than a year apart, Charlotte looked completely different from the girl Noah remembered. She was even more beautiful now, and carried herself with the confidence of a grown woman. Noah had once run all the way to Houston hoping he would never have to see her again. Yet the world had a strange way of bringing people back together. Although Charlotte's appearance had changed, her attitude remained exactly the same. The moment she recognized Noah, a familiar look of contempt appeared on her face. Noah, is that really you? You haven't changed much, Noah stammered awkwardly. He didn't know what to say. Charlotte, it's you? The young man standing beside her turned and looked at Charlotte. You two know each other? Not really. We went to school together. I think he used to have a crush on me or something. But come on, look at him. How could someone like him ever be good enough for me? Hearing that, her boyfriend laughed and looked Noah up and down. So you're the guy who thought a nobody like you could end up with a girl like her? Noah clenched his fists. You shouldn't talk about people like that. When did I insult you? The young man replied. If you're poor, then you're poor. I'm just telling the truth. The day you become the owner of a restaurant like this, then maybe you'd have a reason to complain. Right, babe? Charlotte laughed. As if someone like him could ever own a place like this. I'd stand on my head if that ever happened. Charlotte stood there with the same arrogant expression on her face, while her boyfriend continued mocking Noah. Honestly, I thought he'd be doing something more impressive by now. Turns out he dropped out and ended up working as a parking attendant. That's about as far as someone like him can go, don't you think? Charlotte smiled. What else could he possibly do? Her boyfriend laughed loudly. Getting this job probably took a lot of begging in the first place. Honey, that's a little harsh, Charlotte replied, though the smile on her face suggested she was enjoying every word. Not everyone can be as successful as you. Of course not, the young man said proudly. You should always choose someone with ambition. If a man is poor and useless, what's the point? Charlotte nodded. Exactly. If someone ever gives me a gift, it better be diamonds or something valuable. At the very least, a gold ring. Don't ever give me a single rose. I'd throw it straight into the trash. Both of them burst into laughter. A single rose? Her boyfriend said. That's actually hilarious, right? Charlotte replied. That's why it's still one of the funniest stories I've ever heard. Noah stood there silently as the girl he had once loved laughed about the deepest humiliation of his life. Anger burned inside him, but what could he do? He was only a parking attendant. What right did he have to fight back? Just as Noah was struggling to hold himself together, someone suddenly approached from behind. Catherine had witnessed everything from the very beginning. Catherine walked over with the confidence and elegance of a woman who was used to being respected. She had recognized Charlotte immediately. This was the girl Noah had once told her about. Catherine stopped beside Noah and smiled warmly. Mr. Noah, business must be doing very well these days if the owner of the restaurant has to come out and help with parking. As she spoke, she subtly winked at Noah. Understanding what she was doing, Noah smiled and played along. Ms. Catherine, what a pleasant surprise. It's an honor to have you visit my restaurant. The parking attendant took the day off? Catherine asked. Something like that. I had some free time, so I decided to help out. Catherine nodded. I've heard wonderful things about this restaurant, but places like this should only welcome respectable people. As for trash, it's best not to waste your attention on it. After saying that, Catherine turned toward Charlotte and her boyfriend and looked at them with open disdain before smiling at Noah again. Anyway, I wish your restaurant continued success. Thank you very much. Noah smiled politely. Please come inside. Then he turned toward the couple. And what about you two? Are you coming in to eat, or would you rather leave? Charlotte's face immediately darkened. Embarrassed and furious, she grabbed her boyfriend's arm and pulled him away. Moments later, they drove off, leaving in complete humiliation. After the incident, Noah finally understood what he needed to do. He had to become wealthy. And the only person who could help him achieve that goal was Catherine. If she hadn't stepped in to defend him today, he might never have had the chance to regain his pride. People could call him shallow if they wanted. He didn't care. All Noah wanted was a future where no one could ever look down on him again. That evening, Noah knocked on Catherine's door. Catherine didn't seem surprised by his appearance at all. When Noah entered the room, he saw a bottle of wine and 2 glasses already waiting on the table. Catherine gently invited him to sit down. Would you like a glass of wine, Noah? I don't really know how to drink wine. Just try a little. It's good. It smells wonderful, too. This isn't like the homemade moonshine back in Mississippi. As she spoke, Catherine poured wine into both glasses and handed one to Noah. Cheers! Catherine raised her glass and took a small sip. Noah followed her example. He had never tasted wine before. But, after only a single sip, his face immediately turned bright red. Catherine couldn't help laughing. You're adorable. Sorry, I've just never had anything like this before. Catherine smiled and looked into his eyes. So, if you came here tonight, I assume you've already made your decision. Yes, then what's making you hesitate? Catherine walked over to Noah, wrapped her arms gently around his neck, and whispered softly into his ear. Then stop overthinking everything. Before Noah could respond, Catherine leaned forward and kissed him. For a moment, Noah felt as though the entire world had gone silent. The distance between them, the uncertainty, and all of Noah's doubts seemed to disappear at once. That evening, the two of them opened their hearts to one another and spoke honestly about their feelings for the first time. What followed became one of the most unforgettable nights of Noah's life. For years, Catherine had met many different people, yet very few had made her feel truly understood. With Noah, things felt different. His sincerity, kindness, and quiet determination gave her a sense of comfort she had not felt in a very long time. As for Noah, he found himself experiencing a happiness he had never known before. The two of them spent hours talking, laughing, and sharing stories about their lives until late into the night. As they sat together in the quiet room, Catherine smiled warmly and said, "I never expected you to be so wonderful. But sooner or later, you'll probably find someone better than me, won't you?" Noah asked quietly. Catherine looked up at him in surprise. "Why would you say that?" "I don't know. I just have a feeling." Catherine smiled and gently touched his face. "No one knows what the future holds. Maybe you'll be the last man in my life." Noah remained silent for a moment before speaking again. "Can I really have anything I want?" "Of course. Money isn't something I lack. The important thing is whether you're willing to be good to me, listen to me, and stay by my side. And if I do?" Catherine smiled. "Then I'd give you anything I could. Nothing would be impossible." The two of them continued talking late into the night, sharing dreams, fears, and hopes for the future. Eventually, exhaustion caught up with them, and they drifted off to sleep. In fact, that night marked the beginning of a new chapter in Noah's life. From that day forward, Noah's life changed completely. Not long ago, he had been nothing more than a poor parking attendant, looked down upon by the very girl he once admired. Now he had money, status, and a place beside one of the wealthiest women in Houston. Yet Noah was very different from the younger men Catherine had dated in the past. Instead of sitting around spending her money and enjoying an easy life, Noah threw himself into helping the restaurant grow. He worked harder than ever and focused all of his energy on improving the business. Seeing his dedication, Catherine gradually placed more and more trust in him. Eventually, she handed much of the restaurant's management over to Noah. He became the first young man in Catherine's life whom the employees genuinely respected. Unlike the others, Noah earned that respect through hard work rather than through his relationship with Catherine. Still, just as Catherine had once said, no one could predict the future. Perhaps one day she would grow tired of Noah, the same way she had grown tired of other men before him. Perhaps she would take away everything she had given him and leave him with nothing. But there was no reason to worry about those possibilities now. At this moment, Noah was completely satisfied with his life. He was enjoying happiness beside the woman he loved, and for the first time in years, he no longer feared being looked down upon by others. Whatever the future might bring, Noah had finally escaped the life of poverty and humiliation that had once defined him.